Hi, this is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee, and for today's video, this is one for the new guys out there that have recently gotten licensed, and it covers something that actually affected me when I first got my ham radio license, and that is the phenomenon of what's called mic shyness. Now, mic shyness is kind of an unfortunate term because a lot of people that are affected by it are not what you would call shy people. What it was for me was a reluctance to look foolish. And because I was involved in something new that involved radio and some tech and established practice that I wasn't totally familiar with, because while they train you pretty well to, in terms of studying for the test to learn the ins and outs of technician level operations, they don't really talk much about what you do once you get your license. So when I first got my amateur radio license, I tested my equipment, made one contact, a sum total of one contact, and that was with my old non-vanity call sign. And then I didn't talk again on the radio for almost a year. And what I did in the meantime was I listened. Now, on a smaller microcosmic level, I'm this way socially. If I walk into a gathering of people that I don't know or a group that I'm unfamiliar with, I have a tendency to be very quiet. It's not anti-socialism, well, antisocial behavior is the correct term, but it's that I don't know who I'm dealing with. I like to read the room and kind of get a feel for the kind of people I'm around before I start opening my mouth and flapping my gums. Because if you don't do that, and you'll get to a certain point in life, all of us do, where we realize that sometimes it's better just to keep your mouth shut, because the people you're with might not be aligned the same way you're aligned. So you start running your mouth, you'll end up looking foolish, or you say something foolish. Well, the same goes with radio. And there were other factors involved as well. Another thing is I'm not a small talk kind of guy, and what I mean by small talk is not the duration of the conversation, but rather the depth of the topic. How about that? Because if you listen to amateur radio for any amount of time, particularly in the world of ham, what you're going to hear if you monitor is a lot of talk about eye doctor appointments and gout. And I joke about that, but there's no joke. That's actually among the first conversations that I listened into, was a conversation about someone's gout and the fact that they were on their way to an eye doctor appointment. And I laughed my ass off, but I'd kind of been warned about that, but I wasn't quite ready for that, because this hobby is kind of filled with a lot of older folks, and as the newer guys get in, they really don't know how to talk to people or what to say or what conversations to engage in. So you'll, as a new radio operator, you'll sit there and listen in, and you really don't find any conversations that you want to jump in on, and you certainly don't want to start any, because another mistake I made when I first started finally talking on the radio was getting in, throwing my call sign out there just to see who bit on the hook. And right away I stopped doing that, and I'll tell you why. You get yourself into these messes. Now, there's an old term. The term is called tar baby, and that is, you grab a hunk of tar, no matter what you try to do, it's like gum. You just can't get it off your finger, and you'll get involved in these conversations that you literally can't get out of. And I'm not a rude person, so I don't want to cut somebody off at the end of conversation early, but having said that, some of these conversations I just flat didn't want to be involved in. So again, I sort of stopped talking. For me, radio is not a social kind of thing. And radio, if you think about it, is the original social media. Like, we get on Facebook and Twitter or X or whatever the heck you want to call it, or Instagram, and we're trading messages back and forth in short form. And that's kind of how the new kids, I'm certainly not a new kid, but that's how the youngsters do things. But back in the day, things like CB radio, ham radio, that was the social media if you wanted to reach out and talk to people that weren't in your immediate physical proximity. So radio was a means of developing these social groups, and out of that came clubs, and it's evolved away from that. For a lot of newer folks that have gotten into radio, like myself, we do so not as a social media kind of thing, but we do it for preparedness. We do it to have the equipment available and ready to go in the event we need it in an emergency. For GMRS, we might use it for family communications to talk to each other, when family's out and about in town, and it's great for that. So But getting back to the mic shyness, a lot of people that are new to radio, they don't know quite where to jump in or how or when or why. So I'm going to offer a suggestion to you. A radio activity that can get you on the air, get you involved in using your radio, verify that your equipment is working, get you comfortable with passing message traffic to other people and sending and receiving, but in a very short form that doesn't have a big obligation towards an extended conversation. And that is using nets. Now, wherever you're at, I don't care where in the hell you're at, I guarantee you're going to find some kind of net that is run on at least a weekly basis. Now, here in my area, we have, from Monday through Thursday, we have at least one net going every single night. There are other nets that are kind of out of the area that do morning nets that are conducted almost every day. There's a lot of different nets that you can do, and what a net is if you've never heard one before, it's just they take a number of different forms. Some of them are trivia nets, some of them are check-in nets, some of them are roll call nets, but these are weekly events that occur so that a radio club or an organization can maintain a certain level of readiness amongst its members. So to give you a couple of examples, here in Tulare County, we have a Monday night, we have our Skywarn net, or I'm sorry, our Aries net. So that's Amateur Radio Emergency Services, and people that are involved in amateur radio emergency services or have an interest in that direction, there's a net that starts at 1900 hours every Monday evening. At 1930, I run my GMRS emergency communications net, and that's a really active net, almost more active than any of the other nets that are going on the ham radio side. Tuesday nights is a club net. Wednesday nights there's the Skywarn net, and then at 1830 I run my American Legion Amateur Radio Club MCOM net. Porterville Club runs something on Thursday night. I know I'm talking about jurisdictions and locations you're not in, but that's to give you an idea of the number of opportunities you have on any given week as a technician class radio operator or even a GMRS guy to pick up your radio, turn your radio on, get on the air, drop a call sign, and make sure that your radio is working, make sure that you're hearing and that you can hear others. And as soon as you drop your call sign and let them know if you do or don't have any traffic for the net, you're done. But what it does is it gets you using your gear on a weekly basis. It gets you used to using that equipment, and in a lot of cases they'll give you feedback. If I recognize a new call sign that I've never heard before, I'll give them a signal report, let them know how well they're coming through. If they're a regular person and I've noticed their signal report is diminished or whatever, I give them feedback, so that gives you an idea how well your equipment is working. And like I said, all you're obligated to do in responding to the net is, this is Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee, no traffic for the net. That's it. That's all you have to drop. Or you might have something to add to the net. Now, some other nets do things like trivia, where they'll actually throw out a trivia question, and you have a chance to respond to that trivia question and drop an answer. That involves a little bit more conversation. You can get involved in that, or you can choose not to get involved in that. But I guess the point is, if you're a person who's reluctant to get on the air because you don't know what to say or who to say it to, getting on a net allows you to get out there and do some radio. And I'll tell you something, when you move into HF, you kind of have the same thing that you can do, because HF, again, that's really built around what they call rag chewing. That's long form conversations with people, and that can get super tedious. But they also have versions of this. There are nets. There's a couple of statewide MCOM nets that are run here in California and on the West Coast. But there are also things like SOTA and POTA activations where you can check in and respond to somebody, and therein all you're required to do is just drop a call sign so that they know who they were heard by, and that's they can log that down as a contact, and then you're out. So that'll get you using that gear as well. Now, when it comes to actual radio communications, that stuff is kind of all that I do. I don't really do the rag chewing thing. Anybody that knows me here in Tulare County, I'm listening all the time. If you throw my call sign out there and you're looking for me, I'll respond to you. But what I don't do is get involved in a lot of conversations. Again, I don't have a heck of a lot of time to do that because I'm always working. But furthermore, like I say, I don't really know what to say beyond, and this happens, by the way, a lot. And I'm going to give a little tip to you older guys out there. When someone calls for a radio check, all they want is a radio check. They just want to hear loud and clear. They may be busy working on that radio. They don't really want to do a radio check and then a half-hour conversation. They might, if they initiate, fine. But if somebody calls for a radio check, just give them a radio check and move on. If they want to extend it beyond that, let that be on the person who called for the radio check. But you'll have people that are actually reluctant to do radio checks because they know it might entangle them in a conversation that they can't get out of. And this is no slam on people that are just looking to be sociable with other people. I understand people like that exist. I'm not one of those people. Like I say, I just don't do small talk. I'll talk with you all day if it's of a subject that has some substance and weight to it. But just to randomly pass the time with idle conversation, I've never been that guy from the time I was a childhood up until now. I've always been kind of a quiet kid, but when I have something to say, I have something to say. So that's just a little thing on the subject of mic reluctance. So get out there, engage in a net, get active with your radio, and after a while you'll find your place within the world of radio, and you'll discover your voice, so to speak. But I think I've talked on long enough about that. So with that, I'll bring it to a close. Thank you for watching and or listening. This is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee from Visalia, California. Have a wonderful day.